Coming up this weekend, we have an absolute make or break fight at light heavyweight between the Black Jag, Carlos Ulberg, taking on Water Buffalo, Fabio Cherant. And if nicknames are any indication, yes, Water Buffalo are tough, but I would pick a Jaguar over a Water Buffalo 7.5 times out of 10, maybe?
I'm almost certain water buffaloes kill more people than, like, anything in the world.
They would, but listen, when it comes to this fight, we
I
have...
guess Figueiredo is a pet one. They can't be that scary.
Wild. Carlos Ulberg, who made an impressive yet unimpressive UFC debut. And I want to go there
Memorable?
because... Yeah, memorable. I mean, listen, if you go in Topology, his record's 3-1. UFC have it as 5-1. He had a couple of regional shows that are counted on certain sites but aren't on others. But if you do look at it, this guy has great kickboxing experience. I mean, he fought one of my favorite bugaboo fighters out there. You know him as Ryzen's Jake Hune. You know, the Honey Bear over in China in a kickboxing show. And that's a really fun one to go back and watch. But for Carlos Ulberg, I have so many different notes about the combinations that this guy throws, and actually, I have my notes laid out in a way that I've never done it before, because Matt, I'm going to open it up this way. I wrote my notes down, not just focusing in on the good things and then kind of just burying the bad things. I have it as the good and the bad. So, I don't know, what do you want to hear? I want to hear from the fans in the comments section, but what do you want to hear? Do you want to hear the bad about both of these guys or the good things that they have?
How about you give me the positives from Fabio Cherant first? We'll start there.
Okay, so the positives about Fabio Cherant. Former LFA light heavyweight champ. He beat Myron Dennis, a guy who's been UFC adjacent forever. He took on a great level of competition, and in that fight, a lot of really good counters, a lot of good kicks. There's a lot of things that you can like about Fabio Cherant that way. Good lead uppercut, good left hook, great counter striker. Great counter striker. In most fights, very good counter striker. What would you like next?
Do you mind if I just kind of piggyback off that? He's a good counter striker, but Fabio Cherant does one thing that I do worry about with his counter striking. It's very powerful, but when he does like the rampage kind of duck and throw, if he misses, he leaves himself very, very, very open. And against a guy like Carlos Ulberg, that is something I worry about.
I had that point too, but I'm just focusing on the good. So what do you want to hear next? You want to hear good or bad?
You might as well give me some positives for Ulberg too. Let's even it out.
Positive for Ulberg. He was on Game of Bros. You know, he was supposed to be the Bachelor of New Zealand, and you can tell that from the picture.
Could you imagine getting knocked out by Carlos Ulberg in a kickboxing ring and then him steal your girlfriend? Because that's probably happened before.
I don't want to think about that. What else? Oh, this is one thing that I really like. He's the type of striker that you don't often see in MMA where he can go left, right hook and knock a guy out. We talked about that in his last video, but he's one of those guys that really throws well in combination and from different angles as well. His hooks, we talk about this a lot with Fight Night Picks. There's guys that just have pop at the end of their shots or they have really long limbs, but maybe at the end of it, it just kind of sounds like the air coming out of a balloon, like when Sean Strickland throws some of his hooks.
Kai Kamaka III is always my example. He looks so strong, but he just doesn't get knockouts.
Carlos Ulberg's one of those guys that if you actually go back to his last fight against Kenny Nzechukwu, there's a point in the first round where Herb Dean, it's at minute 1, where Herb Dean goes, come on, you got to fight back. Ulberg almost finished that fight at minute 1, again, with 1 minute remaining, I should say. With 2 minutes remaining, the commentary was already starting to talk about Carlos Ulberg's cardio falling off a cliff. Now, a positive out of his last fight, 83 significant strikes in round 1. That doesn't happen at light heavyweight. Also had 63 in round 2. That's really good. He got caught by that right hook, Kenny Nzechukwu, and dropped. But Matt, I'm focusing on the positives here. Hey, how about his leg kicks? They're great. How about knocking out Bruno Oliveira with a wild combination? And Bruno, don't tell everybody you're going to try and box Carlos Ulberg in the pre-fight on that one in Contender Series. But with Carlos Ulberg, there are a lot of positives with his striking.
World-class kickboxer. Here's the weird thing about this fight, though. None of what we just said matters because both guys' strengths are the other guy's weakness. Like, this is as classic of a striker versus grappler matchup as we've ever had. Because, yes, Cherant can strike a little bit. I don't really like him striking against a lot of guys in this division, but he gets his bread buttered on the mat with his submission ability, with his wrestling. And with Carlos Ulberg, he is basically a kickboxer who just got dropped into an MMA cage, and he's like, sure, I'll figure it out on the go. Like, a lot of his takedown defense is, hey, I'm really big, and if I dig underhooks, I'm pretty strong too. But those are the type of things that really, really drain your cardio, because they're not technique-based defenses, they're just strength-based defenses.
To go off of that too, Nzechukwu at one point tries to hook it up, as Steve Mazzagatti would say, and when it happens, It's like Ulberg hit the panic button. He throws himself away from it. He backs completely out. His hands are totally down. Like, it's still a big work in progress with the grappling, and especially for a guy that's 31, it really is a weird spot to be in this division, because I would think if Ulberg, again, now we have a poster child for this. Adesanya's there, but Alex Pereira coming into the UFC at 3-1, like, that's the guy that, if it's going to happen, it's got to be now. For Ulberg, it really is the same thing, and he wasn't able to get off on that right foot. Now, he almost had Nchukwu rocked from the first combination and done, so Ulberg had lots of great moments in that first round. In the second round, his hands were really low. He was starting to get hit. Even in the first round, he got hit. And that's a crazy thing. You're going from kickboxing 3-minute rounds. At the 3-minute mark of the first round, he was already starting to get tired, but he threw a lot of output. So there are things at play there. For Fabio Cherant, this is one of the bads that I had on my list. So takedown defense is not good for Fabio Cherant. But his takedown defense is defensive submissions, and they work. He has very, very good defensive submissions, and he went to try to do one of those against Alonzo Menifield, who became a wrestler, and then he got Von Flewed in that fight. And then in his last fight, he came rushing forward, left his chin up, and William Knight had a step back right hook that knocked him out. So
that's my only pushback. Are you a good defensive submission specialist if you get Von Flewed by Alonzo Menifield? Like, that's a submission that you hold on to. Like, that's a lack of fight IQ more than Alonzo Menifield taking it from you. Because with the Von Prue choke, you have to make that initial mistake for the other guy to be able to finish it.
And the bad thing in that fight, too, Cherant took that on really, really short notice, because originally that was actually supposed to be William Knight in that fight against Menifield, and I have more to talk about William Knight on this card. But in that one, Cherant missed weight. He made weight successfully in his last fight. So, Matt, I have a lot on this one, but when it really comes down to it, I think the loser gets cut.
Yeah,
I'm being incredibly frank. I don't think you give Carlos Ulberg another shot at 3-2. And for Fabio Cherant, losing 3 fights, especially your first 2 by finish, I think it's donezo. So when I look at the odds for this one, Ulberg open to minus 145. He's minus 213 right now. For Cherant, open to plus 125. He's plus 172. If we look at the Tapology votes, again, a big swing for Carlos Ulberg, but I'm going to set the over-under. I'm going to say 70% Ulberg. What would you say?
I think it'll be over.
You think it's going to be over? It's over. 746 total votes, 86% with Ulberg, 82% by knockout. For the 14% that have Cherant, 38% by decision, 43% by knockout. And for Fabio Cherant, if you look at it, again, overall body of work, it's there. There's some decent fighters on that record. Obviously, the loss to Alexa Kammer, where he rocked him early on in that fight, and then eventually he gets hit by the flying knee and knocked out. He also missed weight in the fight against UG over with CES, and again, has that win over Myron Dennis to win the LFA light heavyweight belt that was on the line. When I look at it, though, again, guillotine, rear naked, anaconda choke. If Fabio Cherant wins, it's going to be by submission.
Without a doubt. I just don't think he's going to be able to get the initial takedown to get the submission. And I do think he's going to be left on an island, to bring up a basketball term, with Carlos Ulberg. I really do think that he's going to feel uncomfortable on the feet, and he's going to get hit a lot as a result of it. And the thing about Ulberg is that if he gets you up against the cage and starts unloading on you, oh my goodness, you better know what you're doing defensively, because he's got that Giannis part to his game where when he goes downhill and gets momentum, there's not much you can do to stop him.
And if you want, again, the Carlos Ulberg one that he rocked at a minute against Kenny Nchukwu, he went right hand to the body, left hook up top, right shovel hook, and then ended it by a left head kick that rocked him. So Carlos Ulberg is one of the better strikers you're going to find at 205. It's just that he has a lot of blemishes. And for Fabio Cherant, great counter striker. That's something that gets you caught against a guy like Carlos Ulberg. If you're waiting for it, you're going to get it and you can get finished. I like Fabio Cherant in this fight, though. And the reason why is because he's not green in the game of MMA. He has those submission skills. It's going to take the wrestling to get him down. I think a game plan out of Lozon's MMA is going to get him ready for a fight like this. But again, would I bet on it? No, because Fabio Cherant has the liability of getting knocked out. Carlos Ulberg's one of the best pure strikers in this division. So if Ulberg gets a win by knockout, I mean, I get it wrong on my record, but I wouldn't be surprised. But there's definitely avenues for both of these guys to get the win.
Yeah, without a doubt. I still like the pure striker, though, in Ulberg.
You've got Super Dave Osborne going with Carlos Ulberg in this fight. I've got Fabio Cherant. You let us know down below. Is it Black Jag or is it going to be the Water Buffalo? And coming up later on at middleweight for the belt, we have Adesanya taking on Whittaker. Number 2. Let's keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.